Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to be looking at the McFarlane Spawn King Spawn and Demon Minions mega figure. This is the newest figure in the Spawn line. I got this guy from Amazon. He's also in stock at the McFarlane Toy Store and Big Bet Toy Store, a couple other places. So let's take a look at the packaging. As you can see, part of the Spawn line, King Spawn and Demon Minions, ages 14 plus. This is not a toy. I always think it's hilarious when McFarlane puts it on stuff, because it's McFarlane toys after all. Here's the figure on the front. King Spawn, bunch of minions, and a bunch of accessories behind the figure. One side of the package, King Spawn from the comics. Other side, just a Spawn. At the back, here he is. And at the bottom, there's his barcode, in case that helps. So with no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He comes with a ton of accessories, and I'd say that's the main selling point of this figure. He has a display stand, a collector's card, 7 guns, and then 3 demon minions. He also has some removable wings. But before we take a look at all that, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. So this is King Spawn. I would call more of a deluxe figure than a mega figure because it's simply a regular figure with a ton of accessories sold at a mega figure price. King Spawn is a new, ongoing monthly title in the Spawn universe. Now, when I first heard they were making King Spawn, I thought, oh, is this a regular Spawn or is it a different hell Spawn? This is the Al Simmons Spawn. I believe this takes place a little bit in the future. Not like the future, but a few years after the regular series. And he doesn't typically have the crown or the wings, so I find it kind of interesting they made the figure of this. I'm sure he had that in at least a cover or a single issue, but he normally just looks like the regular Spawn we know. This is Al Simmons. He has a ton of awesome accessories. So let's take a look. Start with his face. He has the typical Spawn sort of face, although this guy's smiling, his teeth are exposed. He has a little crown at the top, and the wings, which we've seen plenty of times, starting with Redeemer. His body has a typical Spawn look. The Spawn sort of mask, the Spawn sort of skin suit. He's got chains around his waist, a skull, spikes all over his arms. This guy's got a little sort of hook on his hand here. Of course, one side is much larger armor than the other. Same with his feet. Sort of a signature thing Spawn does a lot. Double jointed knees, double jointed elbows. The wings themselves, the sculpt is fantastic. The texturing, all the detail. The paint job's pretty good too. It's kind of gray, kind of brown, and everything in between. The wings are articulated. The figure looks to be a lot of reuse from previous Spawn figures, but that's kind of expected. As a whole, he looks pretty cool, pretty unique, although this is not the way that Spawn typically looks in the King Spawn comics. And a closer look at his face and head sculpt. Now it looks good, it looks creepy. Look at that smile, those teeth. Now mine has the left eye green and the right eye not green. I wonder if that's just a fuck up of my Spawn or if they're supposed to be that way. Drop me in the comments below if you have this figure. Let me know how yours is. Does look good. They do an excellent job on the Spawn figures. The texturing, the sculpt, the paint, it's all there. And then here's the figure broken down as far as you can go with all of his removable parts detached. The wings are removable, so you can display them either way. Now let's check out his accessories, and let's start off with the boring stuff. Here's the display stand. Typical McFarlane stand we've seen a million times before. It's a black circle. This one says Spawn at the bottom. Very thin, very basic. Now let's look at his collector's card. As you can see, it's an image of King Spawn. This one has a sort of crown or spikes on his head, mouth wide open, King Spawn. On the back, there's a description. If you want to read that, pause now. The description is pretty much just the origin of Spawn and who he is, what he does. Now let's check out his wings. So the wings, they look pretty good. My only complaint, I wish they were articulated, kind of like the Batman Who Laughs Sky Tyrant version. Those wings were excellent, although very small compared to these. And we've seen these wings used so many times, but the sculpt is excellent. I mean, look at the detailing on the feathers, look at the detail on the whole thing. Whoever sculpted these wings did an excellent job, and the paint job's good. Like I said before, gray to brown, and then everything in between. Here's the peg that will attach to the back of Spawn. The peg's on a ball joint, so plenty of articulation, at least there. Like I said, they look good, they're big, they're massive, but they could be a little better. Here's Spawn without those wings, and then here he is with the wings attached. Like I said, they look good, massive, intimidating, but could be a little better. An articulation point would be phenomenal in these. Now let's look at his demon minions. These guys are pretty cool. There are 3 of them. Pretty nice sculpted paint job, and they're slightly articulated. So, let's take a look at them. This guy here is kind of the fat, chunky one. Looks good. Eyes are dark, sunken in. He's got a big, wide open mouth, and he has 2 sets of teeth. Sculpt and paint, pretty nice on this guy. He's got some spikes, or horns above his head, and going all the way down his back. You can just see the sculpting is pretty nice, especially because the guy's so small. Let's go further down. He has another mouth in his sort of stomach area. You can see it open there. More spikes on his arms. Little tail back there. As far as the articulation goes, his arms can go up and down. That's about it. Pretty creepy little buggard. Then we have this thin, tall one in the middle. His head is shaped really, really weird. He's got a bunch of eyes all across his little crown. Open mouth, teeth exposed, tongue sticking out, long arms going down to the bottom. Really, really weird shaped sort of body. The arms, just like the other guy, they go up, they go down, and that's about it. And finally, this little guy. He's smiling, he's happy, he's got about 1 million eyes, open mouth, looks like 2 sets of teeth again. He's got double sets of arms, big arm and small arms coming out of the bigger arms, little stubby legs, all kind of bubbly, gross stuff on his back. Just like the other guys, articulated the same way. This guy, you kind of have to have him leaning against his arms for him to stand properly. Now let's look at his guns. He has a ton of them, 7 of them. They have very nice sculpts, but the paint job is kind of weak. You can see the 4 on the right are all done in one solid color, silver. The ones on the left have silver and some brown for those sort of wooden handles, etc. Now, I think all these guns are from the McFarlane accessory pack, either number 1, 2, or 3. I don't mind reuse. I mean, it makes perfect sense to have the guns like this. But man, they could just give them a little bit better paint job, at least enhance some of the details on these things. Still, if you need some guns, this can really help you out. And they're pretty big. Here's Spawn, holding the Tommy gun. He can hold it with either one hand or with 2 hands. Look at that smile. He's really happy to be firing this gun right now. Here's Spawn, holding the assault rifle. Looks good. Just really wish this thing was either done in black or had a little bit of variety to paint, not just pure silver. And now, here he is, holding the shotgun. He's got one hand on the trigger, and then another hand supporting it, holding the pump. And here he is, holding another kind of rifle. This one has a little better paint job. It's got the silver, gray, and then some wood trimming or finish. You can see the magazine sticking out of the bottom. Here's Spawn, holding the grenade launcher. He can hold it with 2 hands. You can see the grenade launcher. It's got the drum with all the grenades. Nice sculpting on the barrel there, but very bland paint job. And these last 2 guns just sort of scream the Spawn universe. I don't think these guns are real. They're very, very large. Like I said, great sculpt, terrible paint job. And here's his last gun. This is the largest of all the guns. Has the same sort of issue, bland paint. You see the magazine sticking out of the bottom, very large. Looks like it has a grenade launcher down here. And of course, he can hold 2 of the guns at the same time. Both his hands are gripping hands with trigger fingers. Now they've taken a pretty good look at the figure and his accessories. Now for his height. From bottom to the top of his head, standing at about 7.3 inches tall, which can translate to 18.5 centimeters. And if you go to the top of the wings, about 8 inches tall. And now for his articulation. Starting with his head, of course, it can rotate from side to side. You can look up and down, a very good amount. Tilt his head from one side to the other. His wings, they can rotate up and down. They're also going to be hinged as well, as if they're flapping. Shoulders, the ball joint goes out about 90 degrees, maybe slightly more. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. He's got a butterfly joint between his shoulder and chest, increasing the range of motion and covering a large gap that would be there. Bicep cut below that. Double jointed elbows, they go all the way in. His wrist, it can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. Ball joint his torso, rotate around, forward and back. Another one in his waist, rotate around, forward and back. Between the two, very good range of motion in his torso area. Legs, complete of splits, McFarlane style hip joints. Rotation, it's minimal, but it's there. Legs go forward about that much. Back, not much at all. Double jointed knees, they go all the way back. Then his ankle, forward and back, rotate, tilt, rock, and of course, to articulation. Here's a look at the King Spawn with all of his minions in front of him under the moonlit sky. Now let's check him out next to some other action figures, starting off with some other Spawn figures, in particular the ones that share these wings. Here's King Spawn next to the Redeemer. They both share these wings. Redeemer was from the first wave of Spawn figures, and here he is next to the Dark Redeemer. Of course he uses the same wings, as he's essentially the same figure. Then, next to the Reaper, which uses the same wings. The Reaper was in the most recent wave of Spawn figures, and they even use the same wings in their McFarlane DC Multiverse line. Here he is, next to Hawkman. So King Spawn here is now going to be the 8th McFarlane figure to use these wings. 3 Redeemer, 1 Dark Redeemer, 2 Hawkman, 1 Reaper, and now King Spawn. And I do think these wings are pretty nice. They're beautifully sculpted, they're large. They could just use an improvement with an articulation cut. Now let's check them out next to some of the best versions of Spawn McFarlane has made recently. Here he is, next to the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn, the one that sort of started all of this. This was released in the Mortal Kombat 11 line, and this was so popular and sold so well. I think this is the reason we have the Spawn line today. And here he is, next to the Shadow of Spawn, also from the Mortal Kombat 11 line. Slightly different sculpt, also a very solid release. Then, next to the Spawn with Throne version, this is also a very solid release. If only he had a full cape, he might be my favorite Spawn. Now this guy has the same armor, same legs, same holster as this King Spawn. A lot of similarities, but not pure reuse. And then here, next to the Batman and Spawn 2-pack Spawn. This is my personal favorite Spawn in the modern McFarlane lines. I love the big cape. Here's a Spawn next to my favorite modern McFarlane Spawn figures. This King Spawn shares the same legs and spikes with both the Batman Spawn and the Throne Spawn. Then he really has the same legs as the Mortal Kombat 11 Spawn, although a much smaller armor piece. And then the Shadow of Spawn has a much smoother textured body, so it doesn't really share any parts with him. Now let's check him out next to some other recently released Spawn figures. Here he is, next to the Reaper and both versions of the Disruptor. This is the newest wave of Spawn figures. I believe this King Spawn is technically part of this wave as well, a deluxe release. And here he is, next to the previous wave, Medieval Spawn, Monolith, and Sin. Then, next to the Amazon exclusive, Glow-in-the-Dark Redeemer. And now, next to the Amazon exclusive, Cygor and She-Spawn 2-pack, here's King Spawn, next to the McFarlane Toy Store exclusive, Patina variant of Cygor. And here he is, next to the Batman vs. Spawn 2-pack. And finally, next to the Entertainment Earth exclusive, Sketch Throne Spawn. Here's King Spawn, next to several different Spawn mega figures. I wouldn't call King Spawn a mega figure, just a deluxe release. Now let's check him out next to some action figures from different various companies, so we can see how he fits in both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which ones you can mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane toy, they're typically the 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect, and work way smaller. But first, let's check him out with some of the McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figure lines, all from McFarlane Toys, all 7-inch scale. And now, next to some Jack-specific wrestling figures, and some DST or Diamond Select toys, here's King Spawn, next to a Head of Cabbage. Happy New Year! Here's King Spawn, next to some DC Direct, and some NECA figures. And here he is, next to both some Mattel and Jazzwares wrestling figures. Then, next to some Mezco and Mattel DC figures. And now, with some Mafex and Hasbro Marvel Legends. And finally, with some SH Figure Arts and some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, King Spawn is a cool figure, but I don't feel like he's that useful to me as an Al Simmons Spawn. I'll probably pretend he's a different Hell Spawn in my collection. The wings, the crown, yeah, it makes him unique, but he didn't look like this in most of the comic. Almost seems like, why would they make this version? Well, the answer is because he looks pretty cool and he's going to sell, and he has a bunch of cool accessories. So I guess to me, King Spawn is going to be alongside Demon Spawn and Raven Spawn and all those other ones. It is a cool figure, a lot of reuse, so it's not like it was that hard for them to make this guy. That goes for both the figure and the accessories. If I had to rate this guy, I'm probably going to give him a 6.5 out of 10. A little bit disappointed, as it's a lot more the same, and I don't really need an Al Simmons with wings. It's not like a thing that he did for a long period or anything like that. That being said, it is a nice figure. I mean, the sculpt, the paint job, all that stuff. Just kind of like, what's the point? So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say with the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.